The situation on the island was utterly chaotic. Frankie's group was blocked from escaping by the vice admirals, while Sanji was trying to get Vegapunk's body to safety. On the other side, Nusjuro continued to take down the last active cyborgs. His speed was so great that the pacifistas, even after detecting their targets, couldn't react in time to attack. Seizing the opportunity, the Marines mobilized their entire force to bombard Egghead Island once more. This time, their goal was to wipe out the entire area, leaving the Straw Hat Pirates no escape. Nusjuro never expected that Bonney, a mere 12-year-old girl, would be entrusted by Vegapunk with enough power to destroy an entire nation. He considered the doctor a foolish traitor. Meanwhile, the remaining giants had begun to return to their ship. The order from the Gorosei was to sink the Elbaf ship to prevent anyone from escaping. Cornered, Bonney was forced to fight to protect Kuma. The first to engage the Vice Admiral was Frankie. His opponent possessed a steam-powered arm, but Frankie's steel arm was stronger, and he quickly defeated his foe. Immediately after, another Vice Admiral targeted Bonney. The girl asked the accompanying giant to take care of her father, then plunged straight into battle. When her opponent called Kuma a weapon, Bonnie's anger erupted. Using her devil fruit power, she transformed him into a child. The Vice Admiral tried to beg for forgiveness, but Bonney, who was also just a little girl, didn't hesitate to teach him a lesson he wouldn't forget. As she attacked, she shouted, "My father is a hero! Take back what you just said." Atlas also quickly rushed in to assist, delivering a punch that sent the third Vice Admiral flying. She asked where Luffy and the others were. If they hadn't arrived yet, the group would have to temporarily retreat. However, Frankie suggested defeating all three Vice Admirals before their comrades arrived. Despite being defeated, the Vice Admirals were still seasoned warriors with astonishing resilience. The scene shifted to Marcus Mars. With his colossal body, he terrified York to the point of tears, constantly begging for her life and crying out, "I don't taste good. Please don't eat me." Marcus Mars angrily roared, but the girl continued to cry. Finally, he broke her shackles, freeing York to calm her down. Then, Marcus Mars asked York to take him to the room appearing on the screen, where Vegapunk was broadcasting the video. Since York was also one of Vegapunk's clones, she must know the location. Having no other choice, Marcus Mars used his massive beak to grab York's body and flew off. Meanwhile, the video Vegapunk had prepared was still playing. However, he had not yet revealed the most important thing, perhaps waiting for the right moment. Shaka asked, "Aren't you having coffee?" Vegapunk replied calmly, "I'm very sensitive to hot things." Only 4 minutes remained before he would reveal the truth about the world. At the same time, Marcus Mars had brought York to a room that looked exactly like the one in the video. She confirmed, "This is it. They filmed here." Hearing this, the giant bird opened its mouth, blowing out a powerful stream of fire, incinerating everything around. He believed that if he destroyed everything, Vegapunk's broadcast would be cut off. York frantically rushed to stop him, shouting that destroying this place was useless, because the video was still playing, proving the transmission device was not here. She began to deduce if she put herself in Vegapunk's shoes, he would surely hide the original device somewhere safer. But if Marcus Mars continued to wreak havoc, the consequences would be extremely serious. She warned that the second floor of the building was the weapon deployment area, the first floor was the energy plant, and the third floor was filled with high-pressure gas cylinders. If those exploded simultaneously, all of Punk Records will be blown away. Hearing this, Marcus Mars asked York to think of a solution. She nodded, saying that she would end this stupid broadcast immediately. Just then, Marcus Mars suddenly sensed a sound coming from a small creature. Most likely, the snail messenger. This proved that the room containing Vegapunk's original recording was very close. He immediately asked York to take him there. Meanwhile, inside another building, Stussy could finally breathe a sigh of relief as the giant monster had spared them. She realized that the giant bird was one of the 5 elders, Gorosei. Her teammate beside her also trembled, gasping for breath and joking awkwardly. "Were you abandoned?" Hearing this, Stussy just gave a faint smile. "No need to pity me. I voluntarily stayed to finish the last task." Elsewhere, Nami's group received news that they had to leave Stussy behind. Edison explained that there was no other choice, as someone needed to lower the shield just as the ship escaped. The Frontier Dome system could only be deactivated from the control room, and Stussy had voluntarily taken on that task. Everyone could only accept it. "The best way to thank her," Edison said, "is for all of us to get out of here together." Edison reassured her. "I've calculated everything. This ship will fall straight to the ground, but we still have a chance to land safely." Upon hearing this, Nami and Chopper burst into tears, while the other members announced that the propulsion system was ready. They just needed to wait for Zoro and Jinbei to return. Then they could all jump into the sea. However, Chopper was still worried that this wouldn't be enough to reach the sea surface. Edison laughed, thinking their ship was troublesome. But he also added, "It's that determined spirit that creates miracles. I'm just a scientist, but I believe in you all." He guaranteed that the ship would land safely on the water. After saying this, Lilith suddenly realized something and quickly tried to stop him, but Edison was determined. He immediately flew towards the shield, despite the desperate screams of his friend behind him. According to his calculations, upon impact with the shield, his body would suffer 78% damage. "That's not enough to kill me," Edison said. As soon as he touched the shield, a huge explosion rang out. Those who witnessed it could only stand frozen in shock and pain. Outside the coast, a strange phenomenon was occurring. All the Navy warships were suddenly pulled strongly towards Egghead Island. The reason was Jew Peter. He continuously sucked everything around him into his body. The terrifying suction force made Dorry and Brogy unable to move, and even Luffy, in his Sun God Nika state, was held tight, unable to budge. In this critical situation, Luffy quickly thought of a way. He grabbed Brogy's arm, using the momentum to fly straight up. Nearby, he discovered a building just large enough to stuff into the giant sandworm's mouth. Luffy cut the building in half, lifted it with his muscular form, and shouted, "If you're hungry, eat these buildings!" After saying that, he threw the giant concrete block straight into the opponent's throat. The attack, with terrifying power, made the monster collapse on the spot. Thanks to this, the three of them had a chance to continue fleeing. However, using too much strength caused Luffy's body to return to its old man state. Brogy asked in surprise what had happened. Luffy gasped, saying that he had almost run out of energy from food. Hearing about food, the two giants remembered that they had brought some fermented shark, the emergency food of the giant race. Its smell was so strong that Luffy grimaced, but to regain his strength, he still decided to eat it. Dorry laughed and said, "Once you get used to it, you'll find it delicious." Indeed, after just a few bites, Luffy's body fully recovered, becoming as strong as before. Seeing this, Dorry laughed and said, "Your body is so simple. Just eat, and you're strong again." But their joy was short-lived. Warcurry, with the body of a giant pig, caught up with them. Brogy warned Luffy to stay away, but he chose to stay and fight. "Once I'm full, I'm not afraid of anything," Luffy shouted, then leaped high, activating Gear 3rd, creating a giant fist to attack Warcurry. The terrible collision stunned Warcurry, but Luffy also screamed in pain. The pig's body was as hard as steel. The two giants, seeing this, urged, "Retreat! Don't let these monsters catch up." At the same time, in the research area, Lilith was silently expressing her sorrow for Edison. However, they had no time to grieve, because, at that moment, Saturn suddenly appeared, putting everyone in danger. Below, Bonney's group had finally defeated the three vice-admirals. The accompanying giant invited them onto the ship, but the very next second, he was slashed by Nusjuro's sword. His sudden appearance left everyone frozen in fear. The scene shifts to Vegapunk's secret room. Thanks to York, Marcus Mars finally found his way there. As expected, the original Den Den Mushi was there. Marcus Mars let out a cold laugh, saying that Vegapunk's luck had run out, then raised his arm, preparing to destroy the device immediately. Speaking to the whole world for the first time made Vegapunk a little flustered. However, the waiting time was over, so he calmly began his speech. Meanwhile, Marcus Mars discovered something astonishing. The world's greatest brain was being stored right here. Even though Vegapunk's original body had died, the brain continued to exist. It contained all of humanity's knowledge, and its current size was as large as a building. While Marcus Mars was distracted, the transponder snail tried to crawl away to escape, but it was too slow and was still caught by him. In the video playing, Dr. Vegapunk said that many people might not believe what he was about to reveal, but this broadcast would surely make the whole world listen and unite. The scene shifted to the East Blue, Usopp's hometown. There, children were intently listening to stories about Dr. Vegapunk, the person who had created countless great inventions that changed the world. Although they couldn't see his image, they could hear his voice transmitted through the radio waves, and everyone was curious to know what the secret of the world was. Vegapunk also made significant contributions in the field of medicine, so he had a profound global influence. At this moment, the Marines were trying their best to stop the broadcast, but the signal continued to spread everywhere. In a distant sea, the whale Laboon surfaced. On its massive body were intricate scars and the familiar skull symbol of the Straw Hat Pirates. In the future land, Vegapunk's hometown, everyone was intently watching the screen, eagerly waiting to hear what their genius scientist would say. For the people there, Vegapunk was a great source of pride. A child wondered, didn't he cause the nightmare in Baltimore? The old man next to him shook his head, gently explaining that it wasn't Vegapunk, but Frankie, who had transformed his own body into machinery. In the South Blue, where Chopper once honed his skills, the island residents also received news about Vegapunk. They discussed him, the father of modern science, who contributed to the creation of countless advanced weapons. Meanwhile, on Hachinosu Pirate Island, the situation became chaotic. Everyone's attention was drawn to the broadcast. Everyone was eager to know, what exactly is the secret of the world? Back in the laboratory, Marcus Mars crushed the transponder snail to cut off the broadcast. But what he didn't expect was that Vegapunk had anticipated this. That snail was just a fake. The broadcast continued as planned. Marcus Mars was furious at being tricked, immediately transformed into a giant bird, and flew off, determined to find the real live broadcasting device. Around him, the scene was only ruined buildings, with no trace to identify the broadcast location. The next scene shifted to where Luffy and the two giants were trying to escape. Behind them, Warcurry was still relentlessly pursuing. No matter how many times it was defeated, the monster recovered, as if it had never been injured. Warcurry contacted Marcus Mars, asking if he had found the broadcasting device yet. The giant bird replied that Vegapunk had hidden it too well. The Gorosei began to worry. If things continued, all the world government's secrets would be exposed. Marcus Mars swore he would find it, but needed more time. Saturn urged him to quickly destroy the device, but Marcus Mars said that Vegapunk had prepared very carefully, so it couldn't be easily disconnected. They didn't know exactly what Vegapunk intended to say, but York had revealed that he had taken over Ohara's research. Hearing this, Warcurry and Saturn thought he was seeking revenge for the Ohara tragedy of the past. Meanwhile, Sanji was still trying to get Vegapunk's body to safety. Suddenly, he sensed Bonney was in danger and immediately changed direction to help. Nusjuro declared that he would not let Bonney get the Marine's weapons, but Frankie resolutely stood up to protect her. Just then, Sanji appeared and plunged into the battle. Nusjuro's sword slowly rose. In a dangerous moment, Sanji kicked to block the blow, then counterattacked with a powerful kick to the chin, making his opponent spit blood. He declared, "No one is allowed to hurt her." Flames raged fiercely around Nusjuro's body, but he did not stop. Nusjuro transformed into a giant horse, biting Sanji tightly. Vegapunk's body fell, fortunately caught by Atlas in time. Bonney worried about Sanji, but could do nothing. The two below continuously dodged the terrifying stomps from the giant horse. Fortunately, Oimo and Kashi appeared just in time. After realizing that the other group were allies of the Straw Hat Pirates, they immediately rushed to assist, holding Nusjuro's body tightly so Sanji could escape. However, the opponent's strength was too great, causing even the two giants to struggle. Seeing this, Bonney transformed into a giant form, joining them in battle. Nusjuro transformed back into human form, continuously slashing with his sword. But Bonney, with the advantage of her giant size, did not flinch. During the broadcast, Vegapunk admitted that he had committed 2 major crimes, so he might be arrested or executed. That's why he recorded this video and set it to play automatically when his heart stopped beating, which meant he was dead. The news stunned the whole world. Everywhere, those watching were shocked. 2 former colleagues who had tried to overthrow Vegapunk also couldn't understand why he chose this path. Vegapunk said that no matter who executed him, he would not consider them evil. In Nami's area, the Straw Hat crew was facing Saturn. His giant and terrifying body made everyone panic. Saturn asked them to get out of the way, because he didn't want to waste time. Lilith and Brook rushed over, calling on everyone to stop the monster. Chopper tried to take Robin to safety, but she refused, determined to stay. In Robin's mind, the voice of the one who had ordered the destruction of Ohara still echoed. The opponent quickly recognized her as Nico Robin, the last survivor of Ohara, and the one Akainu had failed to kill. Nami was surprised, not understanding why the opponent knew Robin's past so well. Lilith explained that he was one of the 5 elders. The giant monster immediately attacked Robin, forcing the others to take the blow. Nami ran to carry Robin away, while the remaining crew members unanimously declared, "No matter what happens, we will definitely protect her." Meanwhile, Luffy was still fleeing from pursuit. Warcury asked Marcus Mars about the broadcast location, but he still hadn't found it. Jew Peter was also searching all over the ground without finding anything. No one expected Vegapunk to cause so much trouble. Off the coast, Navy warships continued their fierce bombardment. The entire island was on fire, but nothing could stop the broadcast. Vegapunk said that his statement might make many people laugh, but nevertheless, everyone had the right to know the truth. In another room, York was trying to find the broadcasting device. She was confident that, since she was also a Vegapunk, she would soon find it. However, too many fake transponder snails had been set up beforehand, making it impossible for Marcus Mars to distinguish the real ones. When someone suggested destroying the power plant, Saturn immediately objected because it would cause immeasurable consequences. Finally, Vegapunk delivered a conclusion that shook the entire world. All continents on Earth would be submerged to the bottom of the sea. That statement silenced everyone. The Gorosei were collectively enraged, while people all over the world could only watch in stunned silence. At Marine headquarters, everything became chaotic after hearing Vegapunk's announcement. They couldn't believe that the entire world would be submerged under the ocean. The scene then shifted to a pirate town, where all of them disbelieved Vegapunk's words, thinking he was using his own death to cause chaos in the world. How could the whole world sink into the sea? However, many people still put their faith in Vegapunk, just like the residents of Water 7. There, the water level rises significantly every year, and soon the city will be submerged. What they couldn't believe was that not only this place, but the entire world would be submerged by seawater. The information had begun to spread everywhere, even in Impel Down, where Doflamingo burst into laughter upon hearing the news from Vegapunk. He asked Warden Magellan what he would do if the prison was flooded, as their responsibility was to keep the prisoners safe. Magellan admitted that the place had fallen into chaos when the sea level rose by a few meters, but to submerge the entire world in water was truly unbelievable. Doflamingo suggested that if the water rose by just 5 meters, most cities would suffer heavy damage, and he asked if they should move to higher ground, hinting at Mary Gioise. In the Ryugu Kingdom, they had also heard the information from Vegapunk. Princess Shirahoshi was extremely worried, asking her father if Vegapunk's words were true. The king was unsure, but said they would have to prepare for the upcoming disaster. Back on Egghead Island, Marine soldiers were furious at Vegapunk's baseless declaration. They believed the greatest scientist was lying, and that this would throw the world into chaos. Above, Marcus Mars was still flying around, searching for the source of the video broadcast. He asked the others to destroy all the transponder snails before Vegapunk revealed all the important secrets. The situation with Bonney and Nami was very tense. They had to face the powerful Gorosei. As for Luffy, he was still being chased by Warkuri. He transformed into Gear 5 to attack the enemy. Those who wanted to stop the information Vegapunk was broadcasting were trying to find the location of the original transponder snail. York had searched everywhere, but couldn't guess where Vegapunk had hidden it. The genius scientist continued to talk about the information he had found. According to his calculations, just a few days after recording this video, the world would experience an unusual earthquake, shaking the entire world. Upon hearing this, many people began to believe that the scientist's words were true, as an earthquake had indeed occurred just today. As a result, the sea level would rise by about 1 meter worldwide, and some islands would be submerged and become uninhabitable. Beaches worldwide would also disappear. Now, everything Vegapunk predicted had come true. This made the pirates who initially mocked him feel scared. Next, Vegapunk wanted everyone to listen carefully to what he was about to say. The earthquake that shook the entire world was not a natural phenomenon. At this moment, Saturn was extremely angry that Vegapunk was about to reveal important information. He continuously attacked the members of the Straw Hat Pirates. Nami then counterattacked with lightning, and the rest of the group also rushed in to drive the monster away. However, all wounds healed instantly, and Saturn attacked continuously without stopping. He used his giant spider legs to slam down, and the pressure from the blow blew away Nami's entire group. Seeing this, Robin tried to use her devil fruit power to create a net of arms to catch her teammates. At this moment, Vegapunk was talking about his desire for peace. After defeating Nami's group, Saturn did not kill them, but quickly ran in another direction. This confused Nami, who thought they were his target. Saturn then asked Marcus Mars if he had checked the power plant, to which he replied that he hadn't because the room was heavily guarded. Hearing this, Saturn decided to go there to find and destroy the device broadcasting Vegapunk's video. At this time, the scientist was talking about his first sin, which was creating an infinite energy source. He was driven by a desire to bring great progress to the world. Saturn then found the room containing the eternal flame that Vegapunk created, also known as the God of Fire. He transformed back into his human form and destroyed the nearby transponder snail. However, Vegapunk's voice did not stop. This was still just a fake transponder snail. Saturn ordered the others to destroy all living creatures in the laboratory, and Marcus Mars was doing the same, but it seemed ineffective. Outside, the marine warships were trying to fire cannons at the giant robot, but it did not stop and continued to move. Inside the island, Luffy felt dizzy after spinning continuously. Dorry asked him to stop playing and focus on running, while Brogy worried about the fire spreading across the island, saying that if they didn't escape soon, they would all burn to death. The genius scientist then spoke about the period from about 900 to 800 years ago, a blank period in history. At this point, those living in Marie-Jouise were extremely angry. They wondered what the Marines were doing to let this video spread, but some were also interested in the information about the century erased from history. The only way to know what happened during that period was through the stone tablets called poneglyphs, which were scattered all over the world, but very few people understood the ancient language. Not to mention, deciphering poneglyphs was strictly forbidden by the government. Although he was a scientist working for the government, Vegapunk tried to decipher it, and this was his second sin. Robin and everyone else were still safe. Lilith thought that Saturn left because he was agitated by Vegapunk's speech. The doctor had deciphered many poneglyphs with excellent scientists, thus learning about the erased part of history. After crashing into the shield, Edison was still alive, trying to help the Straw Hat pirates escape safely. Outside, after seeing Warcury almost catch up with the two giants, Luffy decided to attack the monster one more time. Vegapunk was talking about a man born 900 years ago in a highly developed kingdom. It was said that he had a rubbery body like the Sun God Nika in the story of the giant tribe in Elbaf. That man's name was Joy Boy. And now, the one with that power was Luffy, who delivered a powerful punch to the giant monster's face. However, his arm was also burned by the flame. Seeing this, Brogy and Dorry laughed loudly, thinking that Luffy never learned his lesson, as he had been burned before when hitting the other monster's body. According to Vegapunk, Joy Boy was considered the first pirate on the high seas. The scene shifted to the peaceful land of Wano, where little Otama and others were listening to news from Vegapunk. Thanks to Orochi's transponder snail, they would know what was happening out there. They knew nothing about Joy Boy, but Otama wanted to see Luffy again. Vegapunk continued to talk about the information he read on the poneglyphs. It was about a great battle between Joy Boy and the world government of today. More precisely, it was the predecessor of the world government, consisting of 20 kingdoms forming an alliance. This means that Joy Boy's pirate faction was so strong that nations had to cooperate to fight against that man. Vegapunk could not find out the cause of the battle. All he knew was that Joy Boy was born in an extremely advanced civilization 900 years ago. The weapons used in the previous battle far exceeded the capabilities of current science, and were considered ancient weapons. At this time, Nami was trying to call Zoro and Jinbei back. They noticed that the clouds around them were moving. This was what Edison was talking about when he promised to help them land safely in the water. If the clouds continued to expand until they were parallel to the water, they could slide down and leave this island. Inside the control room, Edison was praying for the members of the Straw Hat Pirates to escape safely and not to be caught by the world government. At the control room, Stussy was still trying to find a way to assist the Straw Hat Pirates. Edison then contacted her, asking her to quickly turn off the energy shield and run. She refused, believing that if she did, the Straw Hat members would be attacked by the Marines. Edison said that their shield was actually useless now. The leaders of the world government had infiltrated, and the Gorosei were the ones they needed to fear, not the Marines. Marcus Mars was currently using his special ability to disable all communication devices on the island. Edison said he had done his best to ensure the Straw Hat Pirates could escape, and the rest was up to them. Hearing this, Stussy breathed a sigh of relief. She was afraid that if Luffy and his crew couldn't escape, Vegapunk would be angry with her. Edison wanted her to leave quickly to save her life, but Stussy said she couldn't. Now that Stella was gone, she didn't know who to live for. At the same time, Jinbei and Zoro received a new message from Nami, and the fishman apologized for the delay. Nami then threatened to kick Zoro because he didn't realize his mistake in wasting everyone's time. Out at sea, the marine warships had begun to approach the giant pirate crew's ship. Nami didn't want to be attacked as soon as they landed in the water, so she asked Jinbei to go faster. Vegapunk had now been taken to another location by Atlas, and despite her sadness, she still had to return to help Bonney escape the island. The battle between the giants and Nusjuro was still very intense. He could cut through anything. While the two giants attracted the enemy's attention, Sanji rushed in to attack. However, his kick was blocked by Nusjuro's sword. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't kick away the enemy's weapon. Instead, he was sent flying by him. Oimo and Kashi then grabbed the giant horse's tail, which annoyed Nusjuro. Bonney also rushed in to attack with Oimo, but even though he was attacked from two directions, the opponent still blocked. The Gorosei's power was still far superior to theirs, and Kashi was also kicked away by the horse. At that moment, Bonney was in danger. Nusjuro jumped high, intending to slash her. Fortunately, Bonney's body had shrunk back to her child form, allowing her to dodge the slash. Frankie also jumped up to catch her, advising her not to overexert herself. Oimo and Kashi continued to fight. However, Nusjuro ignored them and ran off to another place. It seemed that the Gorose's current priority was to stop Vegapunk's video to conceal the world's secret. Nusjuro was angry that the genius scientist kept talking about Joy Boy's failure. Although that event had ended, it left immeasurable, irreparable remnants of war. Hearing this, Nusjuro used his ability to cut the island above where the Straw Hat pirates were preparing to leave in half. His special weapon was incredibly sharp. That slash caused half of the Sky Island to fall, thereby freeing the world government agents. At this point, Vegapunk continued to talk about the world's secret. The lands they lived on were actually all islands. Hearing this, many people found it uninteresting because Vegapunk's words were too obvious. His next sentence astonished many. Because the world of 1,000 years ago was not at all like the present, the disaster at that time caused the entire land to sink into the sea. Now they were only living on the remaining fragments of the ancient continents. The Revolutionary Army was extremely shocked to hear this news, that the world had once sunk into the sea. Now the world of 1,000 years ago had been destroyed and lay deep beneath the ocean. It was believed that there were once many continents, but now no traces were recorded in books. This was indeed shocking news, but not for Nojiko, Nami's sister. She chose to go take care of the Tangerine Garden, asking everyone to tell her about it later. Vegapunk continued to emphasize that within 100 years, the sea level had risen by 200 meters. Upon hearing this, many Marines showed fear at the declaration. Even the giant warships were only 60 meters long. The superior then came out, ordering the soldiers to work and not to believe Vegapunk's words. In Chopper's home kingdom of Sakura, after hearing that the continent had sunk and history was being hidden, many people questioned whether it was true. But if these words came from Vegapunk, then it must be true. This world still holds many interesting things that they have yet to discover. The reason for the 200-meter sea level rise was also revealed by the scientist. Everyone might think it was caused by a natural disaster, but he concluded that the reason for the rising sea level was caused by humans. This was unacceptable to the journalist Morgan, who protested Vegapunk's words, but was stopped by Vivi to listen further. Vegapunk's assertion that the sea level rise was caused by humans was well-founded. He had used every means to investigate, from meteorology, geology, environmental science, to atmospheric science. Vegapunk affirmed that the cause did not come from nature, and finally, the answer was revealed. The scientist discovered the key factor and the existence of something called an ancient weapon. Something that had submerged the world 800 years ago still existed somewhere and was waiting to be activated once again. In other words, the Great War that erupted in the erased history had not yet ended, and only those with the highest power in the world knew this clearly. Somewhere, a mysterious person was looking at a painting of a girl with a face similar to Vivi's, and at the same time, in Vivi's kingdom, the people were mourning the death of their king. Vegapunk continued to talk about his desire to create an eternal energy source for the future, and although not yet complete, the Mother Flame was the final achievement of his research. It was an energy source that would surely make human life everywhere in the world better. But a terrible thing happened when a small piece of that eternal flame was stolen. This was his fault. The situation on the island had now become uncontrollable. Stussy asked Edison what had happened. He said he didn't know anymore. The laboratory, along with the Cypher Paul agents, had all fallen to the ground. He tiredly sat down to rest, stating that the Straw Hat pirates were still safe. But another madman in the Gorosei was heading towards them. Edison continued to beg Stussy to run, and she asked if she could release Kaku. She promised not to let him touch the Straw Hat pirates. Hearing this, Edison agreed, and also had to apologize to her for letting Stussy betray her friends. However, she still chose to help them. So, now do whatever you want, but promise to keep living. Hearing this, Stussy shed tears and promised to try to keep living. Vegapunk's story continued. 2 weeks after the Eternal Flame was stolen, the Lulusia kingdom was completely wiped out. Realizing that his research was what had powered the ancient weapon and destroyed a nation, he felt very guilty. Vegapunk didn't know who had activated the ancient weapon to do that, but what he was sure of was that he had indirectly caused the deaths of countless people in Lulusia. And the disaster that could submerge this world might happen again. In Wano at this time, after hearing about the ancient weapon, Momonosuke spoke of Pluton, one of the 3 ancient weapons that Vegapunk mentioned. Joy Boy had tried to pass these weapons down to future generations, but why would that person want this world to sink into the sea again? There are still many things they don't know about the erased history, but there are still people who know about this event. These are the members of the Pirate King's crew, and this shocking news caused chaos at Marine headquarters. Back to Yor, she was wondering why Vegapunk knew she was the one who stole the Mother Flame. Realizing something, Yor finally guessed the location where Vegapunk hid the live broadcast device. She immediately reported this to the Gorosei. The broadcast device was actually hidden inside the Iron Giant. The Marines were trying to shoot down the giant robot but couldn't. Its body was too big and strong. Normal cannonballs couldn't penetrate it. The scene shifts to Rayleigh after hearing what Vegapunk was saying. He drank so much alcohol that he got drunk, which surprised Shaki. It was rare for him to drink so much. Perhaps Rayleigh was remembering the Pirate King Roger. After learning the exact location where Vegapunk hid the broadcasting device, the Gorosei immediately took action and headed towards the Iron Giant. They wanted to stop the scientist's broadcast immediately before too much important information was revealed. To do that, Jupiter wanted to crush the Iron Giant. The scene shifts to Hachinosu Pirate Island after hearing the shocking news from Vegapunk. The pirates on the island were extremely excited. Believing that there were countless treasures at the bottom of the sea, they shouted and competed to dive down to explore. However, some thought that finding treasure at the bottom of the sea was very difficult, because there were giant creatures at the bottom of the sea capable of swallowing an entire ship. Others thought it would be great if they could find a mermaid to guide them. Somewhere at sea, the captain of a pirate crew was extremely excited about the information about the advanced civilization that Vegapunk was talking about. Although it was hard to believe that the entire world would be submerged to the bottom of the sea, the captain was still very happy to invite other crew members to prepare for a dive. The scene shifts to Vice Admiral Smoker at this time. He was moving while contacting his subordinate. Asking where she was now, Toshigi said she was at the hospital with the SWORD unit, inside the hospital room. Kobe was extremely worried, not knowing what to do next. Currently, there was too much information for them to process, and his teammates advised him to rest and recover. If Kobe followed them now, he would only be a hindrance to everyone. Another member then came in and announced that their captain was recovering very well. Hearing that the others were also relieved, Kobe asked what would happen next if Vegapunk's words were true, and the other guy admitted that if it were true, the Marines would face a crisis. His female friend thought it was time for their sword unit to act. The leader of the sword unit, X. Drake, was still listening to Vegapunk speak. At this time, all over, people began to believe the claims made by this scientist, wanting to know what Pirate King Roger had left behind after learning about the erased history. At the same time, at Nami's group, the shield had been turned off by Stussy, creating an escape route for them. Nami immediately asked Brook to prepare the ship to leave, just waiting for Jinbei and Zoro to return, and they could safely land on the sea. However, Lilith saw that there were many marine ships gathered below, and if they landed now, they would likely have to engage in combat with many marine warships. Brook had also finished fueling the Sunny's propulsion system, and Nami contacted Jinbei asking where they were. He said they were almost back, but a monster was running towards everyone in front. They were chasing after that giant horse, warning those on the ship to be careful, because the monster looked very strong. Nusjuro then jumped straight to Nami to attack, and the girl didn't have time to react, so she just stood still. The others also showed fear of this giant creature, and Lilith realized that this was the Gorosei. Seeing this, Zoro asked Jinbei to throw him towards the enemy, and he used Fishman Karate to throw the swordsman straight. While flying, Zoro drew his two swords and slashed directly at Nusjuro, but the opponent easily sensed and parried the slash. The two swordsmen clashed, but with his ability, Zoro successfully knocked the giant monster away, thus ensuring the safety of the remaining crew members on the ship. Jinbei then successfully caught Zoro's body from above, and he asked Nami to make the ship run immediately, knowing that the enemy in front was too dangerous. They would find a way to jump onto the ship later, so she didn't need to worry. Back on the beach below, the giant ship was being attacked by the Marines. At this time, Bonney's group had successfully boarded the ship, just waiting for Luffy to arrive, and they could escape this place. She was worried that this giant ship would not be able to withstand the Navy's dense firepower. The vice admirals were now directing all their forces to surround and block the escape route, thinking that the giant's ship was only large in size and nothing special. They believed that if they continuously fired cannonballs, it would sink just like other ships. On the beach, Sanji was still waiting for his captain to arrive. He was worried and shouted Luffy's name loudly. Surprisingly, his friend heard him and replied, saying that he was almost there and they should start the ship immediately. Atlas also urged them to hurry before the ship was submerged, and from a distance, Dorry had already spotted the ship. Luffy looked very happy to be able to board the giant ship, and Brogy asked Oimo and Kashi to start the ship immediately. The people on board lowered the sails and turned around. Seeing this, the Navy vice admirals ordered a blockade to prevent anyone from escaping, but no matter how many cannonballs they fired, the giant pirate crew's ship remained unharmed. Instead, the crew members counterattacked by firing arrows at the Navy, and the weapons they used were all large. This caused heavy losses to the Navy, but they still tried to resist. With its enormous size, the giant pirate crew's ship crushed the ships below. The crew members also jumped down to attack, and the small Navy soldiers were not strong enough to harm the giants' bodies. Many warships were destroyed in this way, and seeing that the situation was not good, another vice admiral requested all warships to gather in one place to attack, and two other vice admirals were also present to assist. One person controlled a mechanical monster to fire at the giant ship, while the other rushed in to attack directly with punches. She hardened her arm and unleashed a series of powerful punches at Kashi, who was immediately knocked down and fell into the sea. Seeing this scene, the Navy soldiers were re-energized to fight. Back on the island, Luffy realized that the giant pig was no longer chasing them, and he wondered where it had gone. Dorry thought it didn't matter. What needed to be done now was to jump on the ship and escape. The reason War Curie was no longer chasing Luffy was to focus on attacking the Iron Giant with the other Gorosei. He was still moving around the island without realizing the danger. The four Gorosei in their monster forms had now surrounded the Iron Giant. Realizing that this was the entity that had attacked Mary Jawoy's 200 years ago. Remembering this made Saturn extremely angry, and at the same time, Vegapunk transmitted information, hoping that everyone in the world would remember it. It concerned the letter D in the names of special people. Hearing this, the Gorosei immediately launched an attack on the Iron Giant. They did not want anyone to know the secret of those with the letter D in their names. Just as Vegapunk was speaking at a crucial point, the Iron Giant was knocked down by War Curie and fell into the sea. The impact caused the broadcasting device inside to malfunction, and the Iron Giant falling into the sea created a large wave that pushed back all the Navy warships. At this point, the broadcast stopped, leaving those watching regretful that they could not hear the end. Although they successfully stopped it, the Gorosei were extremely worried if the information just mentioned had been revealed. The Iron Giant sank to the bottom of the sea, and in his mind, He was wondering where Joy Boy was, because he really wanted to meet that person again. At this moment, people all over the world were confused about what had happened when Vegapunk's video was suddenly cut off. Many questions were raised. Many people thought that the scientist might have been eliminated by the world government to hide a secret. But there were also those who suspected that the one who killed Vegapunk was Luffy. Returning to the Gorosei, they were in their giant monster forms, so most of the marine soldiers didn't recognize them. After learning that Vegapunk's video had been cut, the Gorosei were temporarily relieved. However, they still contacted York to ask how many other versions of Vegapunk were still alive. She also said that only Lilith and Atlas were left now. Upon receiving this important information, the Gorosei ordered them to be eliminated. This way, the government could later take over research and development through Vegapunk's remaining brain. The scene shifted to Stussy. After freeing his comrade, he asked her to leave. He warned that if Lucci came, he wouldn't be able to stop him. That's why she should leave as soon as possible. Stussy was about to say something, but was told to leave. She knew Kaku meant well for her, so she turned and ran. Out at sea, the giant pirate ship had started to move, and right behind it were the three captains. Luffy, Brogy, and Dorry jumped straight onto the ship to reunite with the other members. Sanji's group was very happy to see this, relieved that all three captains were unharmed. Luffy stood on the giant ship, extremely excited. Everything around him delighted him. He asked Sanji where the other members were, and his friend said that Nami's group was still stuck above. Luffy felt hungry and asked for something to eat. Below, the vice admirals were still in pursuit, but then Doll was forced to stop because Bonney used her ability to shrink her body. With such childlike bodies, they couldn't fight. Bonney stood high above, laughing and saying that if the Marines let her escape, they would be in big trouble. Doll angrily ordered them to open fire on the giant ship. Sanji then contacted Nami's group above, asking about the situation there, and learned that they were also preparing to leave. Thanks to Edison, they would probably be able to land in the sea. But if anything unexpected happened, they hoped the group below would help. Hearing this, Sanji promised to save all the girls, and as for the other members, he didn't care. The giants then announced that a large bird was flying towards them, which Sanji had anticipated. The Gorosei would not let their group leave safely. The scene shifted to Luffy. He had been taken to the giant's dining room. The chef knew he ate a lot, so he had prepared a feast for him. Even though he had eaten his fill, Luffy still felt it wasn't enough, and asked the chef to make him a few more dishes. Above, the situation was getting worse. Marcus Mars, in his giant bird form, spewed fire towards the ship. To reduce the damage, 3 giants had to use shields to block it, but the fire was too intense, causing the ship to burn. Sanji, who was protected, also thanked everyone. Bonney worriedly said she wanted to get her father and Vegapunk out of there as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the fire would burn them. Brogy and Dorry knew they couldn't ignore the giant monsters, especially the fire-breathing bird. Marcus Mars continued to want to spew fire towards them, but at this moment, the drums of liberation sounded. After eating his fill, Luffy seemed to have regained his strength. Immediately after, the entire area around the ship was turned into rubber. Frankie also asked his captain to stop the monster, and immediately after, the face of Sun God Nika appeared. Luffy joyfully jumped high, attracting everyone's attention, hearing the cheerful sound he made. Dorry and Brogy instinctively danced to the familiar rhythm of the giant's homeland. In their excitement, they forgot to put out the fire on the ship. Bonney and Sanji watched everyone dancing, not understanding what was happening. Kuma used to teach his daughter this familiar dance, and remembering that, Bonney knew the person in front of her was Sun God Nika. Luffy had transformed into a giant, which surprised the girl. He didn't know who the Nika Bonney was talking about was, but he knew very well that her wish was to defeat those who had harmed Kuma. Initially, Bonney was worried she wouldn't be able to do it. Luffy continued to encourage her, confident that she would succeed. He then changed his form for Bonney to remember. This was the appearance of a free person, and the warrior of liberation, as Kuma had described before. That person would appear with laughter and a vibrant rhythm that would make those around them want to dance. After feeling more confident, Bonney activated her devil fruit power, transforming her body into the form of Sun God Nika. Witnessing this scene, even Luffy was surprised. He was very happy that Bonney was just like him. The father below also saw this image. Kuma recalled his promise to Ginny that he would raise Bonney. The giants below also showed excitement at having two Nikas here. The Marines were fearful of the two white giants hovering in the air. On the shore, Warcury and Jupiter sensed something ominous and acted, with the monsters approaching to attack one after another. However, Luffy and Bonney were not afraid. On the contrary, they were extremely confident. Even the Iron Giant submerged at the bottom of the sea had been awakened. He sensed Joy Boy was here. Marcus Mars speculated that Bonney's form was just an illusion created by the devil fruit. He accumulated energy and aimed it at the two Nikas. Seeing this, Sanji asked his captain to block the attack, and the other giants also cheered him on. Knowing that even if they crushed the Gorosei, they still wouldn't die, Luffy came up with a new way to drive them all away. He transformed his body into an elastic ball. The opponent's flames also caused Luffy pain. However, he asked the others to attack his body with all their might. Hearing this, Sanji and Franky understood and immediately jumped up to follow the captain's wishes. Bonney hesitated, unsure whether to hit Luffy or not. Marcus Mars was then restrained by Luffy and couldn't move. He wanted everyone to attack him immediately. Since this was an order from the captain, Sanji didn't think twice and just followed. Receiving encouragement from Luffy, Bonney transformed her arm to become larger. Thus, the three of them attacked at the same time, causing Luffy pain because they used haki. But he still endured it, relying on the elastic mechanism of rubber. Luffy immediately exerted his strength to push Marcus Mars away. The opponent could not resist. As a result, they were pushed away by Luffy's group. According to their speculation, he wouldn't be able to return immediately, so they would take this opportunity to escape. Sanji didn't know where Usopp's group was. They should have landed in the sea by now. Atlas thought something had happened and had to fly to check. She knew York was watching her and Lilith, so she was afraid of becoming a burden to the Straw Hat Pirates. At the same time, Vegapunk's video continued to play, but the transmission was unstable, making it difficult to hear what he wanted to say clearly. At Luffy's location, suddenly many people fell from above. It turned out that Jupiter had previously spat them out from inside his stomach. Seeing this scene, Luffy laughed loudly, thinking it was a water fountain. Brogy knew the sea monster would come here, so he warned everyone to be careful. Immediately after, Jupiter used his giant mouth to suck everything into his stomach. Bonney also tried to cling to the ship, but couldn't maintain her Nika form. Fortunately, Sanji grabbed her hand, so she was safe. Dorry asked the crew to furl the sails and use the oars to change direction. Luffy rushed forward and delivered a powerful punch directly at the monster. Witnessing this scene, even the Marines couldn't understand what was happening. Warcury took advantage of Luffy being there and attacked the ship. He warned that the pig was very tough. If they collided, their ship would surely be crushed. Even Brogy and Dorry didn't know what to do in this situation. Luffy suddenly heard the Iron Giant call out, "Joy Boy!" He had fully awakened. From under the sea, the Iron Giant delivered a punch that sent Warcury flying. Perhaps this was the right time for the Iron Giant to act, looking at its massive body. Luffy was extremely surprised. He always loved giant robots like that.